you should know that by being a racing driver, you are under risk all the time. By being a racing driver means you are racing with other people. And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. Because we are competing to win. And the main motivation for all of us is to compete for a victory.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Raceface.Pro GT3 iRacing Sprint Series, the Pro-Am Division. We're going to be kicking off with Heat 1 here at Road Atlanta for Round 3. My name is Stephen Koenig, and welcome to THC Productions. And we are here at the lovely Elkhart Lake here in the USA on a very, very special circuit. Home to the classic race, the iRacing 500, which is all your classic cars, your Audi GTO, your Nissan GTP, going and having a bit of fun. We're going to be seeing our Pro-Am, see what they can do around this 6.4 kilometer circuit, as they're going to be throwing down on a very warm circuit. It's 19 degrees out there, 21 degrees track temperature, 67 humidity, but a 5 kilometer wind may be a little bit to unsettle those cars that are more focused on aero to help get them through on this very, very quick circuit. So let's take a look at our grid, because this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Rowan DeToy out in first place, along with Steven Kutzer in second place. Malcolm Pringle running in third, Robbie Teens, Wyatt Peters, Chris Santos, Lee Bouillon, Leon Vessels, Sergei Starkov, and Etienne Swart will be running in 10th, Roland Ferreira in 11th, and Gareth Brits in 12th. So a little bit further down from there, we have got Jaco van Lith, first time out on the grid. Good to see some new drivers, some new names, and new faces. Duncan Roderick out in 14th, and Katleko Molokai going and having a bit of fun. Katleko returning to the grid and going to be having a bit of fun with Venon Kursup, Stephen Cakebread, Francois Dutoy, Doug Herber, Mark Pelser, Jaco Krobler lying in 21st, Mandalozi Gabashi running in 22nd, Jacques Ever, and Norman Lewis running in 24th. 24 cars looking to kick off all the action, and we're going to be looking to have a bit of fun for our leader that is making his way through. Rowan DeToy hoping to stand head over shoulders with Steven Kutzer lying in second place, ready to go on the attack. Malcolm Pringle going to be lying in third place, hoping to get ahead of Robbie Teens that in the asymmetric sim sport, in the Aztec Sim Sports colors, not the asymmetric, that is our pros. Moving on to our fourth position, Malcolm Pringle, Robbie Teens, Chris DeSantos hoping to also get involved with that fight, keeping ahead of Lee Bouillon, who's had a good luck to Niall in the pros. Have fun out there. Lee looking to put on the charge. And after a devastating run for both Chris and Lee at Daytona, there's lots on the line for the Logistical Nightmare Racing team. Leon Vessels a little bit behind, tracking in 8th. Sergei Sarkov hoping that he can get the jump on the rest of the field. Has got a little bit of a tough time out there. Keep an eye on Roland Ferreira. Late pit stops went and served him well at Daytona to get into the fight. Etienne Swart along with Jaco van Lith. A little bit of a jackal to the entire round. He is in the green Rexy, hoping that he can climb up through the order. Gareth Brits is lining up to the side of him and looking to get into the fight. So, as they make their way through, our safety car guiding them all along and giving everyone a heads up saying, okay guys, keep it all nice and neat. We'll watch the safety car lights disappear and they will start to pick up the pace, and it'll up to Steven Kutzer and Ruan de Toy to get the jump on the rest of the field. They will be in communication with one another, sporting a new set of colors, what we've seen on the cars, where likes of Malcolm Pringle, a little bit further behind, is actually utilizing the old set of colors for Team Slowpoke Racing. Just a little bit of a nod to the old school. Robbie Teens looking to get that jump as we got 24 cars lined up. Actually 23, because Van Kersop is actually going to be starting from pit lane. And that is going to be a bit of a rough start for him to try and get that climb all the way through. So Ruan de Toy going to be guarding with Steven Kutzer. The two of them will be relaying a bit of information and we'll be seeing where they can go. Jacques Hever a little bit further back. His eyes set on Norman Lewis and Jaco Grobler, as he's got a lot of hard work to try and pull himself back up through this very, very busy field. And Jacques Hever has had a bit of a hit or miss in the last race. Got some good runs, had some awful ones, but he's hoping that he can change it all here at Road America for round 3 of our championship. As we get to the closing stages of it, it is going to be a wild, wild run indeed. And it looks like the toy, unfortunately, with a disconnect, has gone and popped out of existence there. So Steven Kutzer will be stone alone at the front and going to be smiling at that one. Robbie Teens, on the other hand, will see an opportunity to go for that inside line if Malcolm Pringle will have the bit of a poor start. So they're lined up, waiting for the flag. Jim holding the flag at the ready. Engines revved up to ready to go. Lights on, lights on, lights on. Steven Kutzer at the ready, lights off, and they go racing. White Peters getting the jump on Malcolm Pringle, immediately dives round, gets defensive. Lee Bouillon tries to look for the inside line as he takes a bit of a dive. Robbie Teens knows that he's got a bit of a problem here, getting caught in between the Team Slowpoke, so he manages to put himself ahead of Leon Vessels and now needs to stay on the fight with the likes of Malcolm Pringle just ahead of him. But Steven Kutzer is starting to open up that gap. Lee Bouillon getting ahead of Chris Lee DeSantos, and Sergei Sarkov just managing to maintain a little bit of a gap. He's going to be chasing down the Logistical Nightmare Racing drivers with Roland Ferreira hot on the heels of him. Etienne Swart staying in the mix as they make their way into the heartbreaking zones, and it looks like Swart getting a little bit sucked in. Jaco van der Lith trying to go after him. Oh, Mondelez Gabashai, a little bit of contact there, and that has opened up the door for Gareth Brits to get past the likes of Kutlekel in the KFC machine. The BMW now trying to go and defend against Stephen Cakebread with Doug Herber going and chasing down. So Doug Herber and Stephen Cakebread know each other very, very well. Stephen Cakebread up on the inside though, gets a little bit of a launch past Kutlekel, now needs to just keep the hammer down and pull his way back up through the order. So Steven Kutzer out in first place, White Peters in second, Malcolm Pringle in third, and with Robbie Teens trying to chase him down in fourth place, immediately sees Malcolm Pringle landing up in the dirt. It looks like Roland Ferreira going and absolutely sending it into the dirt, now having to try and pull his way back up through the order. Was trying to get onto the back of Sergei Sarkov. That lost out a bit of time. Immediately had Etienne Swart trying to capitalize on that mistake. Sergei Sarkov all over the back of Chris Lee DeSantos. So Chris needs to think what he needs to do here to get that BMW to wake up and get going. They do have a mandatory pit stop that needs to be served. So depending on how much time is being lost, maybe it's worth to get into the pit. Sergei Sarkov going side by side as Roland Ferreira straight lines him at the moment, with Etienne Swart keeping in close tow. So Etienne Swart's going to be trying to make his way through. Going to be a very close tow here for Etienne Swart to try and get it done. Looking to go through right and wide. Roland Ferreira managed to put his nose in. Swart up on the inside. Sergei Sarkov down 2 positions before he even got down to turn 1. Unfortunately, couldn't get to that apex. Had to brake a little bit later. Now Jaco van der Lith is all over the back of him, trying to push his way through. So great start out for our drivers. Not too many problems at the moment, other than Ruan de Toy, who landed up going and losing out a bit of time, and unfortunately out the race due to a connection issue. For Heat 1 of the Raceface.Pro GT3 iRacing Sprint Series for our Pro-Am division. And White Peters running in second place. Malcolm Pringle in third, keeping up a fair amount of pressure. Robbie Teens hoping they can stay in for the fight. Leon Vessels, Lee Bilyun a little bit further back. And Chris Lee DeSantos trying to chase him down. Roland Ferreira doing everything he can to try and make up that little bit of time that was lost, diving into the dirt with his Chevrolet. Not most ideal for a mid-engine to do, and that cross can be rather detrimental as they make their way through. Stephen Cakebread and Monalozi Gabashai trying to have a fight with one another. It does look like Stephen Cakebread has lost out a bit of time there. Monalozi getting onto the back of Gareth Britt, who's chasing down the new driver, Jaco van der Lith, who's done an absolutely stellar job. Stay up for the fight, running a very close time to Sergei Sarkov at the moment, but it has got Gareth Brits chasing him down, looking to try and go for that inside line. Can he go for it? Second guesses it this time around, saying, nah, maybe not this time to go on the attack just as yet. Going to wait it out, as we do see Sergei Sarkov immediately getting onto the back of the Porsche of Etienne Swart, that Ultra Carbon Racing, having to now look around and see Sergei giving everything he can to try and close up that gap. Everyone utilizing as much of the runoff as possible to carry as much momentum on the way through. Jaco Krobler closing up the gap to Mark Balser as he charges his way on. So Mark Balser's got to be very cautious here. And Jaco Krobler trying to make up that little bit of time in the Ferrari. Francois Dutoy just ahead of him is also trying to just open up the gap a little bit more, trying to catch up to Venon Kursop, who did start from pit lane, is now up into 19th position, and Menelon Gabashai, unfortunately, seems to be having a bit of a connection issue, jumping up and down through the order. Duncan Roderick, Jacques Eva doing a fantastic job out there with Koklecho onto the back of Doe Gerber, trying to push on with Stephen Cakebread a little bit up the road. Manalozi now trying to close up that gap, but we can see Gareth Brits all over the back of Jaco van der Lith. So Gareth needs to think what needs to be done here to get ahead of that green Rexy just ahead of him, or is he going to play a little bit of working together to try and close up the gap onto the back of Sergei Sarkov and Etienne Swart, who are also in a battle just within reach. Jaco doing everything he can to defend that inside line, ensuring he guards those apexes. Not going to allow the Ominous Gaming Nitro Machine to dive up like Gareth Brits going and showing his hand a little bit early there for a overtake. Couldn't quite get it all hooked in and lost out a bit of time. So he's going to be well aware of what's coming. Our top three opening up that gap as we do see White Beaters going and running off into the dirt a little bit, as these three have absolutely snapped away from the rest of the field. Going and opening up a 3-second gap to Robbie Teens lying in fourth. Leon Vessels going and holding back Chris Lee DeSantos with Lee Bilyun doing everything he can trying to chase him down in 7th position, with Roland Ferreira hanging there in and thereabouts as they make their way through. So the top three of this Team Slowpoke Racing definitely not beating Slowpokes out there and laying into a fight. You can see that they are pushing to get promoted up into Pro, and I think with the times that they record setting at 2:04.8, that is definitely going to be touching on the Pro times, and definitely going to be seeing about mid-grid of Pros very soon. Sergei Sarkov trying everything he can to Etienne Swart, looks towards the inside line. Etienne Swart guarding that outside line. How long can he keep it as he's pushed off the apex? And Sergei Sarkov up on the inside, but couldn't get the drive as they go drag racing down into the turn 2, and it does look like Sergei is able to get it going and managing just to get ahead of Etienne Swart. That Porsche having to just back off the throttle, get into the toe, pull himself along, and now look for where he's going to get the pass as they're going into the left-hand. It's going to be hard on the brakes. Does lean on that inside line a little bit. Goes on the attack. Huge send to try and get it done. Sergei Sarkov, though, goes immediately on the undercut as Etienne Swart gets a very poor exit. That has compromised him and allowed Jaco van der Lith to go around the outside, and he's pulling Gareth Brits as well. Gareth Brits gets it done. Mandalozi Gabashai is going to try his luck as he cuts across the nose of Stephen Cakebread, doing everything he can to retain his position. And unfortunately, Etienne Swart took the gamble. It didn't quite pay off for him, and unfortunately losing out 2 positions and swallowed into the next, as Mandalozi doing everything he can to try and battle it back. Gets into the toe, pulls himself along, seeing where is it going to be a bit of an advantage here. Stephen Cakebread hanging into the back, hoping that he can try and capitalize. And now that has brought Doug Herber into the fray as well. So Stephen Cakebread lines himself up behind Manalozzi. Unfortunately, a little bit slower through the quick sweep. And now that McLaren becoming a bit of a hindrance for the likes of Doug Herber. But Manalozzi Gabashai doing everything he can, sees that Etienne Swart is trying to tail onto the back of Jaco van der Linde, who's all over the back of Gareth Brits. A quick flash of the lights there saying, okay, buddy, let's work together here. Try and pull our way back up to the top as they launch their way through. So Gareth Brits keeping ahead of Jaco. Etienne Swart with Manalozzi trying to carry a bit of pace, and Stephen Cakebread doing everything he can. First of the cars into the pits is going to be the likes of Jacques-Eva actually pulling into pit lane and getting it done and dusted. Oh, Stephen Cakebread did look for the inside there. Couldn't quite get it done, but we do see one of our Ferraris going off the track. Who was that? That might have been Gareth Brits, who went a little bit wide, compromised his drive. Jaco van der Linde, unfortunately, going and losing out a bit of time through the corner, and now has Etienne Swart onto the back of him. So out towards the front though, and Doug Herber losing out a bit of time as well. So it seems like he's had a bit of a problem. Had Kakleko get past, and now it looks like Veynon Kursop up on the inside, trying to get it all hooked in. Veynon Kursop gets a pass done on Doug Herber. So Doug's just gone trailing backwards down the field, and is starting to just try and pick himself up off the floor. Jacques-Eva coming out of the pits. So Steven Kutzer leads out the charge with Wyatt Peters in close proximity. And Malcolm Pringle now on defense. Nearly 4 seconds away from Robbie Teens in a little bit of no man's land, lying in 4th place. Leon Vessels going and keeping an eye on Chris Lee DeSantos and Lee Bouillon chasing him down. Roland Ferreira still staying within the fray. Sergei Sarkov, Gareth Brits, Jaco van der Linde doing everything he can to keep Etienne Swart at bay. Manalozzi Gabashai looking to throw haymakers towards Etienne Swart just ahead of him. And Stephen Cakebread hanging thereabout with Kakleko dealing with Veynon Kursop now. So Veynon Kursop and Kakleko hoping to do battle. Kakleko stuck on the outside. Huge send on the inside. Goes for Veynon Kursop. And the likes of Doug Herber trying to stay in the mix. Looks to go around the outside of Kakleko as well. So Veynon Kursop gets it done. And Kakleko Malakili going and having a great time out there. Really battling it out, trying to keep it all together. Runs out a little bit wide. Suddenly Doug Herber into the toe, trying to pull himself along. But right behind him is a driver we haven't spoke too much about, Duncan Roderick. Don't count him out just as yet. He has kept his hand close and kept his cards close to his chest, looking to try and make a way through. Francois Dutoy a little bit further back with Mark Pelser, Jaco Krobler, Norman Lewis, and Jacques-Eva trying to make up some time after his pit stop. A little bit of a drop on the wheel on the dirt, and he's got to be so careful not to land up with a bit of a problem. Side-by-side action as Stephen Kutzer and Wyatt Peters go past one another side by side. They absolutely push one another to a limit, but it looks like Wyatt Peters was able to retake into first place. Stephen Kutzer having to relinquish that position. These two going and working with one another, with Malcolm Pringle trying to chase him down at the moment. So first place still on the cards. The teammates looking to fight it out at this point, as they've got pretty much no contention at the back in our Pro-Am class. Putting in some good times, 204s, and is running close to our, well, that's actually running our pro times. Robbie Teen's running a 205.6 on the last one, so he is tailing a little bit on the back end there. Chris Lee DeSantos keeping ahead of Lee Bouillon, and Roland Ferreira staying within a shout. Leon Vessels and Sergei Sarkov going to try and bring back. So Jacques-Eva is the one to keep an eye out for. Veynon Kursop will need to repit after starting from pit lane, so that's not going to count for him. And Dutoy, who has now rejoined out on track, trying to keep it all going. So Dutoy is going to try and bring himself back. Started out in first place, unfortunately a disconnect, taking him out of that fight, and now losing out a bit of time. So Roland Ferreira also having to just put his nose down and get into the fight to the logistical nightmares ahead of him. Leon Vessels, as we do see Wyatt Peters pulling into the pits. So he's going to be serving that pit stop and getting it out of the way early on. Sergei Sarkov, and Leon Vessels does pull into the pits. Sergei thought about it, and decided, nah, rather not, as most of our drivers, Jaco van Lint getting into the pits, and that is going to release Etienne Swart and Stephen Cakebread to go at one another. Mandalozi Gabashai right behind will have to deal with Veynon Kursop, who is on a bit of a defense at the moment. And Veynon Kursop has got Katheko looking around the outside. That BMW looking a little bit mean and just managing to peek the nose a little bit ahead to ensure he stays within this fight. So lots and lots of interesting situations. YP's Leon Vessels, Jaco van Lint, Duncan Roderick, and Doug Herber all into the pits, with Veynon Kursop giving a quick flash to Mandalozi saying, hey, listen, buddy, we're catching up to you a bit here. And also the internet not looking the greatest, so just keep that in mind on the way through. And it does make trying to get past your competitors a little bit more difficult. Etienne Swart trying everything he can to stay on the back of Stephen Cakebread on the fight through. Stephen Cakebread just keeping that little bit more of a drive, gets the rear to kick out underneath him. That has allowed Etienne Swart to close up the gap. The Porsche looking a little bit more stable than the McLaren. The McLaren's got some serious top end, being a very new car to the world of iRacing, and the 720S Evo hoping to really make an impact this season, as Veynon Kursop taking matters to his own hands, stuck on the outside, trying to push as hard as he can to get past Mandalozi. He couldn't quite get it all hooked in, and that has compromised a bit of time and allowed Kakleko to get onto the back of him. So Kakleko needs to try and dig deep on this one. Veynon Kursop trying to look for any way to get past, has to get his nose in. No, that is Swart, and oh man, Kakleko having to dive into the dirt. Etienne Swart touching in the grass, and that was all she wrote for the Porsche, unfortunately going and smashing its nose against the barrier. And Malcolm Pringle pulls into the pits, but we see Veynon Kursop trying to get that pass done and dusted on Mandalozi. Just can't quite get it all hooked in to get it all sorted out. Chris E. DeSantos, Roland Ferreira, Sergei Sarkov, Gareth Brits all into the pits, and unfortunately that is Mandalozi getting turned around. A little bit of slight contact from the likes of Veynon Kursop, and that has allowed Kakleko to try and get on by. Side by side they go, charging their way down to the wire. And Kakleko going to do everything he can to try and come across the nose. Does so without too much of a problem. So at the moment, Steven Kutzer out in first place with Robbie Teens in second. Lee Yun along with Stephen Cakebread, Kakleko Mokai, Veynon Kursop on the tail of him, trying to make up some time. You can see a little bit of damage to their front end after the slightest bit of contact. And then Jaco Krobler in 7th position on the way through, still needing to get into the pits. Mandalozi Gabashai, unfortunately, who got a bit spun around, trying to keep it going, has got Norman Lewis now gaining a bit of time. So Norman Lewis is going to hope to try and get the pass done and dusted. And then we have got Wyatt Peters, who is the first of those that have done their pit stop, with Malcolm Pringle right behind. I reiterate though, Veynon Kursop did start from pit lane, so he's still going to have to get that stop done and dusted. It is mandatory to do a pit lane stop, change tires and get back out. It is an open setup class that allows you to maximize the fueling however you feel fit, that you need to get that little bit more up the road. It's going to be a difficult one though for the drivers to work out, especially now that the gaps are starting to open so much towards the front, of 6 seconds between competitors from first, second and third. Stephen Kutzer though running in, Stephen Cakebread, I do apologize, running in 4th place, along with Veynon Kursop trying to make up some time. Kakleko running out a little bit wide, but going and flirting with the track limits there, and saying, yeah, I'm going to try my best here. It's not going to be a very pretty run. Roland Ferreira putting the pressure on Leon Vessels, looking to try and get a pass down and dusted. The Chevrolet, great rotation on it. Has been a proper contender here at Road Atlanta. Now needs to try and dig in deep against Leon Vessels in the brand new McLaren 720S. Well, I'll say brand new. We're up to week 5 that the car's been out. So Leon Vessels trying to carry that little bit of momentum, runs out a bit wide. Roland Ferreira a little bit more easy, loses out a bit of time. Gareth Brits trying to come back at him in the 296 Ferrari GT3. The newest of the Ferraris as they switched over to the V6 turbos. Stephen Cakebread, Lee Bullion, Mandalozi Gabashai, and Norman Lewis now into pit lane. So they're getting their pit stops down and dusted. Unfortunately, are going to tumble down the order as they try getting in a little bit later into this race. and hoping that it's going to work out for them. Steven Kutzer, though, is one to keep an eye out for. Now, when he's going to get into the pits with Robbie Teens, so much thinking that has to be done at the front here, because taking a look at where everyone's coming out, Wyatt Peters is in the pound seat, lying in 6th place with Malcolm Pringle, his teammate, onto the back of him. So Malcolm Pringle is going to play a little bit of a defensive role at the moment. The two are going to try and push each other to just move up through the order. And Chris Lee DeSantos, more than enough gap between himself. Oh, I say that, puts a wheel on the dirt, and that is lost out a little bit of time. Lee Bouillon, seeing that there's an opportunity to catch up to Chris, has Jaco van der Linde and Sergei Sarkov trying to close up that gap. So Sergei doing everything he can to make sure he can stay within this fight with Jaco, who has been quite impressive. And for start of the season, well, for the season, a bit of a late entrant, and so far has gone and shown off a brilliant skill to fight it out with our top runners, sitting just in that top 10. And Steven Kutzer now into the pits. Now, what's going to happen for Robbie Teens? He's going to continue going. Will Venon Kursop, Kokleko, and Jaco go that little bit longer in the race? And also, Rundatoy, unfortunately, will have to do another pit stop to just get their one out of the way. Robbie Teens going to try and go an extra lap now to open up the gap a little bit more. So Robbie Teens hooking the dirt, brings it over, trying everything he can to just get a little bit more pace underneath him. Venon Kursop is also going to continue going. He's decided that, unfortunately, he'll started from pit lane. That's compromised a bit of time. He's hoping to try and usurp a little bit of the positions on the way through, knowing that he's in a little bit of hot water with the earlier collision. Jaco Krobler of Team Heap Together doing exactly the same, going to try and stretch the car out a little bit longer and hoping that it's going to keep him within the pack. Steven Kutzer and Kakekul will keep an eye as they lose out to Wyatt Peters, and it does look like Steven Kutzer just gets out ahead of Wyatt Peters, so the undercut didn't quite work out there. Steven Kutzer has to get a little bit more defensive, but I don't think the teammates are going to go and butcher each other too much here, as Steven Kutzer going and defending against his line and trying to get a bit of heat into the tires. Wyatt Peters going to try to come back at him, nose to tail, pushing each other along. Malcolm Pringle giving a little bit of a gap to these two and saying, all right, guys, you're going to battle it out. You best make it work here. Steven Kutzer around the outside, going to go late on the brakes as he was on the inside. Wyatt Peters tried the outside line, couldn't quite work it out, as we do see Malcolm Pringle also getting a bit of that aero wash sweeping across underneath his car and having to really battle it out, dropping a wheel on the dirt. All three of them actually dropping a wheel on the dirt. Chris Lee DeSantos, Lee Bouillon, Sergei Sarkov has got a bit of a problem as Jaco van der Linde has pushed on to the outside. Roland Ferreira getting a little bit hungry for the position. He's hoping to get into that top 10 and is searching to try and get that pass done and dusted. So it's going to be a hard bit of work there. Jaco van der Linde having to just try and battle it out, doing everything he can with the little Rexy as he keeps ahead of Sergei Sarkov, who is not having an easy time, gets a bit of a snap oversteer on the way through. Sergei trying to keep it all together. We'll need to keep a very close eye on the mirrors. Another good battle starting to rage on, Kaklehul and Doug Herber, but it looks like Doug Herber managed to snap that toe quite a bit and has opened up the gap. So Doug Herber opening up a little bit of time. Jaco going defensive. Roland Ferreira looking for the inside line. Going to go late on the Acres. The ETA Autosport just managing to get ahead of Jaco van der Linde. He leaned on him quite a bit there to just try and force him to back out of it. Didn't quite work out in terms of going and creating a bit of fear, but had to go late on the brakes. Venon Kursop now into the pits. That's going to leave only Robbie Teens and Jaco Krobler to do their to do their mandatory pit stop for Heat 1 of this Pro-Am division of the Raceface.Pro iRacing GT3 Sprint Series on the way through. So great stuff from there. And Wyatt Peters keeping the pressure on Steven Kutzer with Malcolm Pringle now looking to get a little bit involved as they charge their way through. So these three running a little bit in formation, but at the same time, giving each other just enough room. That one mistake can be the end of it. Francois Dutoy also trying to catch up onto the back of Duncan Roderick. And Duncan just keeping a fraction ahead at the moment, hoping that it's going to be enough. And Duncan, we said, keep an eye on him. He's not one to be counted out of a race just as yet. At the moment in 17th and putting up a valuable defense against Detroit behind him, who is on a proper onslaught to try and fight his way through. So Francois Detroit hoping that he can try and get a little bit of a look on the inside line. Duncan Roderick didn't argue too much there. Tries to go for a cutback, both running a little bit wide. Duncan Roderick just a little bit too slow through the corner. It's cost him a bit of time. Now he's going to have to tuck back into the toe and pull himself wrong. Robbie Teens doing yet another lap out on the track. Jaco Krobler, let's see if he's going to be pulling into the pits, because Steven Kutzer, running in third place, is in a net first place at this point of the race and keeping ahead of his teammates. So Jaco Krobler going to choose whether he's going to dive into the box or not, and he's going to also stretch out the gap and hoping to get a bit closer to Robbie Teens ahead of him. So Steven Kutzer runs out a bit wide and joined by Ryan Peters and Malcolm Pringle running in third, fourth, fifth as it stands. Having a great time out there. Jacques Haver going and putting the battle against Doug Herber. Drag racing the one through. And looks like Koklekel and the likes of Vaynon Kersop getting into the fight. As Koklekel having to stand on the anchors and lands up into the dirt. A quick sudden change from going hard on the throttle to hard on the brake mid-corner was just enough to unsettle that BMW. And Vaynon Kersop was lucky enough to not get involved in that contact there. So Doug Herber, who got caught out, created a concertina effect mid-corner, and that unfortunately landed up with Koklekel going and getting turned round. As we see Doug Herbert giving a bit of a chase to Jacques Evans just ahead of him. Jacques not backing down from the fight, carries a lot of momentum through to just see if he can keep ahead. Doug Herbert's going to have to get a little bit of elbows out here as Vaynon Kersop switching around left to right, tries to go around the outside. Two Porsches, very well known with one another. Oh, contact! Doug Herbert and Vaynon Kersop side by side. Unfortunately, the contact between the two goes and throws him around. And Jacques Haver, who was looking in his rearview mirror saying, these guys are getting close, suddenly has a breathe of fresh air. Francois Detroit and Duncan Roderick, they're not going to be complaining about it. Etienne Swart will be coming around. But Vaynon Kersop continuing on the drive with Doug Herber. Thankfully, not too much damage to both Porsches, as Vaynon Kersop going and allowing the likes of Doug Herber, who outbrakes himself into the corner. Both have got very overheated tyres, and while they're busy being nice to one another and Vaynon just going and giving that little bit of room, that's allowed Koklekel to get back into the fight. So these three are not over just as yet. Robbie Teens now into the pits. Jaco Krobler, the only car that still needs to get into pit lane at the moment as they battle their way through. Vaynon Kersop looking on the inside, and Jaco Krobler into the pit. So those are the final of our cars needing to do the pit lane in the last 4 minutes of this race. That's going to promote Steven Kutzer and Wyatt Peters back up into first, second, and Malcolm Pringle into third on the way through. So our Team Slowpoke going and locking down that 1, 2, 3 for Heat 1 at the moment. But Vaynon Kersop staying within the fight to Doug Herber and the likes of Koklekel Macaulay getting very, very close in that BMW, hoping that's going to be enough. Jaco Krobler dropping down the order. Looks like Roland Ferreira is also going to get that overtake done and dusted. So Jaco Krobler still sitting in the pits. Now down to 12th place. That late pit stop, did it work out? Here comes Jacques Haver though. Jacques getting the pass done and dusted as Jaco Krobler's rolling. Francois Detroit and Duncan Roderick are going to try and get past, and they have done it as well. Etienne Swart is going to be the next one. So Jaco Krobler, unfortunately with that late pit stop, has now compromised himself. And we saw that it's a double-edged blade. I mean, we saw it at Daytona, where a late pit stop can either make or break your race. And unfortunately here at Road America, it looked like that too late of a pit stop didn't quite do it justice, as we see Gareth Brits and the likes of Jaco van Lith going and diving into the dirt. Both getting caught out and needing to try and figure out what they can do. Etienne Swart lining himself up to Jaco Krobler. Looks on the outside line. Can he keep it defensive? And Jaco just puts a little bit of a lean on him. Etienne Swart having to back out the power. Vaynon Kersop getting, as we see Doe in the background with Mandalozi Gabashai now pass. And that is Koklekel who seemingly had a bit of contact, actually waited for Doug Herber to get going. So sacrificing his positions, but returning the spot back. Unfortunately, both cars now sporting a bit of damage right to the end. Not ideal circumstances on the way through. Close battle for 10th and 9th position as Gareth Brits onto Jaco van der Lith, who is in a huge fight. And he is fighting against Gareth, who has been improving throughout the season. Jaco on his debut outing, hoping that he can do a phenomenal job, and at the moment is soaking up the pressure to keep up the pace. Roland Ferreira just within arm's reach, well, a little bit further up the road, and seeing, okay, Roland Ferreira's there. I have an opportunity here if he makes a mistake, but I need to keep Gareth Brits at bay. And Gareth, for the Omnis Gaming Nitro so far, is utilizing everything he's got, hoping that he has a little bit of nitro in that tank just to try and get a little bit more. That 1 or 2 kilometers that can make or break the race at the moment down our long straight. So Gareth Brits hoping he can stay into the fight as our drivers make their way through. It is still Steven Kutzer keeping a great time out there. Wyatt Peters in second place. Malcolm Pringle locking down that first, second, and third. 11 seconds away from Robbie Teens. So the three of them have been pushing each other hard enough that Robbie Teens just can't get within reach as it stands. He's going to have to really think about the long picture here of what does he need to do with Heat 2, because that's going to be coming up next. So drivers are going to have to rethink their positions or what their strategies were. Duncan Roderick going after Francois du Toit. Can't quite get that pass all hooked in as yet. Sharksaver trying to make up a bit of time to Stephen Cakebread, who is seeing the likes of Gareth Brits and Jaco still fighting it out between one another, going and doing everything they can, throwing absolute haymakers to try get that little bit of momentum through to claw their way to victory. So Duncan Roderick in 14th, trying to go for Francois du Toit, but this battle for 10th and 9th is still raging on, as we do see Gareth Brits taking a little bit more liberties around the corners, runs out wide, and he is just trying everything to get that little bit of pace. Side by side he goes. Gareth going and walking him down into the corner and saying, listen, buddy, if you're going to try and push, you're going to have to work out wide. Steven Kutzer, Wyatt Peters, Malcolm Pringle, all taking that top 3. Robbie Teens, Chris Lee, DeSantos, Lee Bouillon, Sergei Salkov, Roland Ferreira, but Jaco van der Lith and Gareth Brits still fighting out. 1 corner to go, and it does look like Jaco getting across the line. We'll be quite happy with that one. So as our drivers complete Heat 1, it is turned into a monumental run, and well done to everyone thus far. But now we have got Heat 2 coming up, and it is going to be an absolutely wild race. A couple of cars yet to come across the line. Duncan Roderick, as he comes across the line with Francois du Toit, and Jaco Krobler going and getting that 15th spot. Venon Kursop getting 16th as he comes across the line. Mandalozi Gabashi taking 17th, with Doug Herber in a locked out 18, just ahead of Kakaleko Mokoli in 19. Etienne Swart will take a 20th spot, with Norman Lewis, Mark Palser, Leon Vessels, and Runda Toy rounding out our pack. So great stuff. And taking a look at our official results for Heat 1. It is Steven Kutzer, Wyatt Peters, Malcolm Pringle, Robbie Teens, Chris Lee DeSantos, Lee Bouillon, along with Sergei Salkov, Roland Ferreira, Jaco van der Lith, Gareth Brits, Stephen Cakebread, Sharksaver, Duncan Roderick, Francois du Toit, Jaco Krobler in 15th, Venon Kursop, along with Manlozi Gibashi and Doug Herber in 18th. Going a little bit down the order, it is Kakaleko Makoli, Etienne Swart, Norman Lewis, Mark Palser, Leon Vessels, and Runda Toy rounding out our pack after Heat 1, ladies and gentlemen, and that is that. They will be taking a look towards Heat 2 as it's going to be heating up. It's going to get great. It's going to get exciting here at Raceface.Pro for the Raceface.Pro GT3 iRacing Sprint Series Pro-Am division here at Road America as we get closer and closer to the end of our championship. Everything's on the line to maximize the points. Who's going to be able to stand on top? Who's going to be able to fight it out? Will we have Team Slowpokes taking 1, 2, and 3 once again? Or will Robbie Teens be able to go and put a wrench in that plan, finishing up in 4th place in Heat 1, But first place is on the cards for him, as we're going to be going and battling out. Top 5 will be swapped around to have a bit of fun here at Raceface.Pro. But the sun does start to set here at Road America, and that is going to change the dynamics of the circuit. Reflections are going to be a bit of a problem. Shadows that are being cast by objects like the trees, the bridges, all going to be playing into effect. Plus the drivers having to work their way through all these shadows, maybe battling it out in a very difficult circumstance. I mean, some of the shots that we're getting out on the circuit, absolutely amazing to see Road America, but you can also get to appreciate the undulations, the changing cameras, the highs and lows of this track that can absolutely bottle your race in a matter of seconds. And we've seen that. A couple of drivers putting a wheel on the dirt, again, put them into the wall in 2 takes flat. You've also got to be very patient with one another. Otherwise, you're going to land up causing some severe accident as they will be battling their way around. So we've got a 5-minute warm-up for our drivers to make their way around the circuit and just try and get themselves all back in order. We'll see a couple of those drivers just taking this opportunity to dial in the cars, get that setup working for them, and also where they can get that little bit half a second here or there, or even starting to understand as that sun starts to set where exactly the shadows are being cast out on the track. Francois de Toy utilizing a little bit of time. Jaco Grubler also doing exactly the same thing, getting a bit of a track guide at the moment, and also figuring out with a bit of a work on the setup, is it going to be enough to get the jump on the field. Veynon Kersop, who had a bit of a rocky Heat 1, needs to try and figure out where he gets that little bit more of a climb. Having a battle with Kakeko and Dirk Herber didn't do him any favors in Manlozi, Gabashai, and him having to come to blows one another, heading out on the straight. Not ideal circumstances, so it's going to be a very, very interesting one. Jakob Krubler hoping that he can gain a bit of time, going and putting a wheel on the dirt. Know that he's been practicing on Petit Le Mans, trying to get himself ready on Road Atlanta, and he's going to be make his way there. Suddenly going, oh, Road America is actually really different, and a bit of a problem here to try and learn. Robbie Teens, who started out going and putting in the fight, needs to try and do everything he can to get that little bit closer to the hunting pack of the Team Slowpokes. So Toy going and completing yet another lap here in the warm-up, just to try and dial himself in and also dial the Porsche in for any little changes that need to be done. As we do see a couple of cars in the pits waiting for the clock to run down of our warm-up before we'll be heading into Heat 2 and see the battles going on ahead there. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting time for Road America, and with the circuit that has got quite a history with it in IRL, but even here in Sim earlier this year, going and hosting the Road America 500, which, as pointed out, was the more of the older cars, the Audi GTO and the Nissan GTP multi-class race. Old school cars to get to have a bit of fun. Takes roughly about 5 hours to get that whole run done and dusted. That will test drivers, but every one of these drivers are preparing themselves for next week's run at the Petit Le Mans at Road America, Road Atlanta. And that is a little bit of a difficult circuit. So from Raceface.Pro and THC Productions, for those racers that are going to be having a bit of fun at Petit Le Mans, the South Africans going in and really enjoying themselves, and also our international drivers, wish you all good luck for the Road Atlanta, the Petit Le Mans, being a very, very fun race. Multi-class racing, GT3s, LMP2s can lead into a great monumental charge. Coming off the back of the Bathurst 1000 in the supercars, we get back into the GT3 range and also the LMP2 range as you hunt your way down. So good luck to everyone out there, but also it's going to be a ton of fun that looks to really push the limits. Veynon Kersop trying to do exactly that, utilizing every bit of track, but we jump to our race now, and our cars will be lining up. So top 5 will be swapped around, and we will get racing as they line up on the grid. So Rowan Toy, unfortunately, landed up with a bit of a problem with a disconnect early on the vessels running a little bit further down the order is going to have to keep a very close eye. Robbie Teens going and lining up will get himself ready, as we do see Chris Lee DeSantos is up against him. So Chris Lee DeSantos hoping that he can stay within the shout and see if he can make up that little bit of time on the way through as they get themselves ready. I mean, just going off the roll bar, nothing is more daunting than seeing the road drop off, and you have to kind of guess where you need to be for that pass to be done. Safety car will be getting ready to roll, and you can see everyone just getting themselves ready and out on the circuit, hoping to get the race underway as quickly as possible. Ronda Toy, a little bit further down, has got a lot of climbing to do. Was first in qualifying. Unfortunately, internet connections brought him down. Steven Kutzer starts a little bit further back, was the winner of the last one, and he has got to deal with Wyatt Peters, who's going to be rather hungry to try and get round, as Wyatt Peters starts rolling off the grid, and Malcolm Pringle will be chasing him down. Now remember, Malcolm Pringle was in without a shout and ready to have a bit of fun. Well, Steven Kutzer gets a win. He has to start in 5th place. That has just allowed the entire grid to get a little bit topsy-turvy. So Robbie Teens and Chris Lee DeSantos going and lining up out the front row. They know exactly what needs to be done to not only fight out with one another, but also to go and fight out to keep the Team Slowpoke Racing off to one side. I do want to point out, for those that haven't quite noticed, on the Logistical Nightmare Racing, you'll see that there is a dog walking sticker that's just above the number board of that BMW. Well, Logistical Nightmare Racing actually has one of their competitors, or one of the team members, that does dog walking as a full-time job, which for many people out here in South Africa think, how on earth you managed to get that one right? Well, gotta love your furry friends, and the best thing for your furry friends is to get them walking and getting physically fit. So well done to Logistical Nightmare Racing, advertising something completely different to the world that is, if you think about it, actually quite needed. I know for anyone that just doesn't quite have the time to go out for long walks, that's great stuff. Wyatt Peters, something to bring up about Team Slowpokes, that we're sporting the new colors with EG Evolved written on the car. EG Simulators hoping to go and bring in a bit of fun, and also a supplier of simulator rigs here in South Africa actually brought in Next Generation, if I remember correctly. They've brought in the Ford and the Ferrari aluminium frames and seats from Next Generation. Henry Mayer actually went and bought one of those very rigs to ensure that he gets a little bit faster. Hopefully he went and got himself the Ferrari, because the GT3 Ferraris does really well, just don't do Formula 1. They haven't been quite on the pace like they would like to of old. So Chris Lee DeSantos, Robbie Teens lining themselves up. Robbie Teens lying in 2nd place. We'll have Chris Lee DeSantos lying out in 1st. So Chris needs to get the jump. The BMW not the best at starts, and the last BOP has brought it down into the ground. So they've got to be well aware of the situation here and think, okay, how are we going to get this climb? What needs to be done to push ourselves that little bit further up the road and managing to get the jump on the competition? Is it going to be when the safety car pulls in, start picking that pace up quite a bit, or is it going to be backing the field up as much as possible to ensure it doesn't land up into too much of a problem? Robbie Teens has got to also keep a very close eye on Chris Lee DeSantos, looking to the right of him and seeing exactly when that car is going to go, because soon as Chris gets going, he's going to have to try and either get the jump on him, or he needs to close up the gap to prevent the teammates of the Slowpoke Racing from getting by. And that's going to be the trickiest part, because he's got a 3-way fight. He's going to hope for the likes of Lee Billion in the Audi to stay in for the shout, and also get ready to go on as they make their way through over the bridge. And now it is lining themselves up for the race. Chris Lee DeSantos will be starting out in 1st. Robbie Teens in 2nd place as they get ready to go. Safety car is now heading off, and it's lights on, lights on, lights on. Over the crest they go. And soon as they bridge over the crest, we will be going racing as they stand on the power. And already Chris Lee DeSantos not hanging around, gets a jump on the entire field. Robbie Teens going and battling it out with Malcolm Pringle, who goes up on the inside line and gets a pass done and dusted. Never mind, as we do see Robbie Teens trying to go for him. Malcolm Pringle gets turned around, unfortunately, and that is him down the order. Wyatt Peters will be seeing this with the likes of Stephen going, oh no, we lost out, and now we need to try and close that back a little bit of time. Robbie Teens dropping down the order. We'll have Lee Bullion now having a good go at him, and Lee in the Audi hoping that he can give a great chase at this point to try and bring himself back into championship contention. He needs to score some valuable points here after a bit of a rough Daytona. He's been on a bit of a stellar drive here at Road America, but Sergei Sarkov now looking to get within that fight as well. Jakob van der Linde keeping ahead of Stephen Cakebread. Roland Ferreira going and battling it out with Jacques Evan and Francois Latoy all over the back of him. Gareth Brits goes around. Doug Herber getting the pass on Duncan Roderick. So does Ruan Latoy, as Duncan Roderick dropping a little bit back. Will have to deal with Jaco Krobler now. And Jaco Krobler not looking to back down from the fight. The Majors 24 Split 13 winner for the LMP2s. Now looking to fight it out with Leon Vessels right onto the back of him. Mark Pelser trying to make up that little bit of time. Runs out a bit wide. And Kakleko McCoy dealing with Etienne Swart. Malcolm Pringle, who unfortunately went flying off into the dirt, has got a lot of hard work ahead of him, with Veynon Kursop actually going and tailing on behind Mandalozi Gabashai and Norm Lewis. Unfortunately, not making it to the grid, as we do see Mandalozi going and making his way around the track. So Gareth Brits, unfortunately, also dropping down the order and not having an easy time there. So puts himself into the dirt, unfortunately. Loses out a bit of time, goes down into 14th. And now having to just try and make his way through. Looks to bait towards the pits. Chose not to. And that is going to be a bit of a compromising run. Malcolm Pringle now into the pits to try and get his pit stop done and dusted. Jakob Krobler keeping a very tight line. Keeps the inside line. Duncan Roderick hoping to swap around. Looks for the inside to try and get that pass all hooked in. Can he get it done? Nope, a little bit too far back. Run to Toy all over the back of Doug Herber as they fight it out. Doug Herber stuck on the outside. Needs to swing across the nose of that McLaren to try and be as defensive as possible, as likes of Ruan Latoy not going to back down from the fight. That is going to help Francois Latoy on the back of him. So Ruan Latoy will now go around the outside and forcing Doug Herber on the inside line. He's going to have to go a little bit late on the anchors, but brake a bit harder than planned. And Latoy Ruan getting it absolutely hooked in ahead of Doug Herber, and now there's Francois Latoy to get a little bit closer to him. Gareth Britt hoping to also throw his hand into the fight as they make their way through. So Gareth Britt hoping it's going to be enough momentum that is needed to get his way back up to the top. So at the top of the order, Chris Lee DeSantos out in first place. Wyatt Peters in second place, trying to close up the gap. Stephen Kutzer lying in third. Robbie Teens lying in fourth place. Sergei Sarkov in fifth. Lee Bullion in sixth, with Jaco van der Linde chasing him down. Stephen Cakebread, Roland Ferreira, and Jacques Ever all onto the back of him. Ruan Latoy, as we do see there is a car in the background that landed up, getting caught into the dirt. Gareth Brits, Jakob Krobler, Leon Vessels going and battling it out with Francois Latoy, trying to go and make his way through. Duncan Roderick going to go side by side, and he is pulling Mark Pelser through as well. So Duncan Roderick gets it done. Francois Latoy loses out a bit of momentum, and contact into the back of Latoy, and unfortunately Kaklerkel gets involved there. Malcolm Pringle going and losing out. Here's the rear of his car. Etienne Swart, unfortunately, was caught up in that whole concertina effect and gets his nose absolutely brutalized. And that is the likes of our leader, Chris Lee DeSantos. Put a wheel out on the dirt. He's lost the back end of that field and of the BMW, and now is pulling into the pits. It is drama, drama, drama. Wherever you look on the track, Everything is now changing. Wyatt Peters and Steven Kutzer are going and pushing each other along as they look to open up the gap. Robbie Teens is going to be trying to close up that bit of time. And Sergei Sarkov, along with Lee Bouillon, chasing down. Jaco van Lith doing everything he can to get a little bit more defensive. Stephen Cakebread onto the back of him. And Rowan de Toy dealing with Jacques Ever all over the back of him. As Jacques doing everything he can. Jacques Ever hoping that he can try go a little bit late on the brakes. Hopes to send it on the inside. Couldn't quite get it all hooked in. Runs out a bit wide. Over the dirt they go. And Roland Ferreira trying to close up that gap has got Doug Herber onto the back of him. These two have been racing together off and on for the special races, the ETA Autosport and Team Triad Racing. But when it comes down to putting it all onto the track and versing one another, well, completely different story. So Chris De Santos comes out of the pits. Will he get ahead of Malcolm Pringle? That is where the question is. Malcolm Pringle, though, landed up with quite a few different problems during the course of his race. Venom Kursop will have to also get back into the box as well after starting in pit lane once again. So pit lane starter, unfortunately, going and taking a bit of an impact. Gareth Britz touching the dirt, losing out a little bit of time. As we see Roland Ferreira doing everything he can to stay within the fight of Doug Herber onto the back of him, trying to force a mistake out of him. Stephen Cakebread onto the back of Jaco van Lith, also trying to move his way up through the order. So this is just up and down. All the cars sitting within 1 second of one another, hoping that just one mistake, one little move, that drop of the wheel, or even just a back off on the throttle may be enough to go and score some valuable points towards a championship, as we do see drivers pushing the boundaries of what they can do and scoring those penalties. But take a look at Sergei Sarkov. Got to take my hats off to him, putting the fastest lap of the race so far for Heat 2 of the Raceface.Pro Iracing GT3 Series Pro-Am division. Sergei Sarkov going and putting in that 2:05.34 at the moment, which is absolutely incredible stuff, as they really lean on the power there. Leon Vessels onto the back of Jaco Krobler. So Jaco Krobler going and having a bit of fun out there, needs to get a little bit defensive as he pushes to catch up to Gareth Britz just ahead of him, and sees that Leon Vessels has now become a very viable threat in the McLaren. That Ferrari is going to have to stretch his legs a little bit more, trying to get any bit of momentum on the way through. Mark Pelser a little bit further down, dropping like an absolute lead weight. So he's landed up with a bit of a problem. And yep, put it on the dirt, got a little bit turned around, and now having to try and make up a bit of time. Keklekel onto the back of Francois de Toy just ahead of him. So Francois de Toy is just needing to soak up that little bit of pressure. Etienne Swartz just ahead of him with a bit of a squashed out Porsche, still trying to power through all that damage. That front end just not biting underneath him. That understeer in the Porsche becoming a little bit more inherent at the moment, and not ideal circumstances for the race. Stephen Cakebread feeling the pressure from Rowan de Toy. Rowan hoping that he can put the pressure on Stephen Cakebread into a bit of a mistake here. So Cakebread needs to think a little bit wise, runs out a little bit wide, losing out that little bit of time. Now has Rowan de Toy trying to straight line him, both in the McLaren 720S, but who's going to be fearless on the brakes as de Toy tries to look up on that inside line, trying to get it all hooked in, runs out wide. Stephen Cakebread trying to battle it out. They're still going to make their way through the S's side by side. Absolutely no fear, but de Toy managing to just get that snake round as Stephen Cakebread got off the throttle, and that has allowed Jacques Ever to get on, unfortunately, into the dirt, and has cost himself some time. Roland Ferreira and the likes of Doug Herber going and capitalizing on that mistake. Jacques Ever now pulling into the pits to just try and serve that pit lane. Well, that pit stop after a bit of a devastating run got so close, unfortunately. Braking on the outside on the marbles is not an easy factor to deal with. So up at the top as we get racing once again, Wyatt Peters, Steven Kutzer going and leading out. Robbie Teens has got Sergei Sarkov closing at a rate of knots, about 1.2 seconds behind him. And Robbie Teens, who's hoping to try and stay within the championship 5, has got a bit of a problem. Lee Bouillon, hoping that he can stay in the fight, is lying in 5th place. A great improvement from Daytona. So he's hoping to carry that bit of momentum all the way through. Jaco van Lith, who's been quite impressive throughout this race in Heat 1 and Heat 2, is doing a great job on the way through. Malcolm Pringle onto the back of Chris De Santos. And if you want to talk about we remember each other, well, this is going to be it, as Chris De Santos needs to get a little bit more defensive to hold his position. Even though they're lying 21st and 22nd at the moment, they still have an opportunity to make up a bit of time, as right ahead of them is the likes of Mark Pulser and Etienne Swart getting past them. And now Malcolm Pringle looks for the inside line, backed out of it, not getting too much involved in the fight as they gun their way down towards turn 1. So, the Toy hoping they can keep the likes of Jaco van Lith under a bit of pressure. A new name to the grid, and so far has been quite a dominant force out here to deal with as they go side by side, hard under braking, and it does look like the Toy gets a little hooked in, runs out a little bit wide, brings it back, so no problems indeed there, as Yaku now going and tailing on behind. Will have to try and make his way through. We have seen the 205s creep in, and we have seen the 204s. So far, Wyatt Peters and Steven Kutzer have not been able to get those 204s like they once had in Heat 1. And it's probably because the conditions have changed so much. Doug Herber into the pits, now trying to serve his pit lane. He's going to have to keep an eye on Jacques Eva as they make their way through. So Jacques Eva is going to be the one that they need to keep an eye on. Stephen Cakebread leans on that inside line. He decides he's going to rather wait it out here and not to get too much into the fight. Roland Ferrer, Gareth Brits dealing with Jaco Krobler, who is in the chase with Leon Vessels, hot on his heels at the moment, will be continuing on. So Doug Herber will be losing out a bit of time. I don't think the undercut is going to work out all too well here, considering the lap times are far too close to one another, all sitting in roughly that 205, 206 marker as they battle their way through. Jaco Krobler takes a look on the inside line, he backs out of it, and suddenly Leon Vessels, oh man, so close, nearly a bit of contact, and he gets himself turned round. So Leon Vessels trying to avoid, stood on the brakes a little bit too hard there, and Vainan Kursop getting that pass done and dusted. So Vainan Kursop's going to be smiling ear to ear. Well, Leon Vessels is going to have to try and bring those tires back to reality after going and cooking them on a slide. So not ideal circumstances, but in motorsport you've got to be prepared for those sudden changes, and that balance of the car is so critical to try and keep it all together. Critical on the throttle, critical on the brake. If you're losing out that little bit of time and you're wanting to avoid, standing on the brake is just what your brain wants to do. Just stand on the anchors, slow the car down. But actually what you need to do is try and lean on that brake a little bit, just enough to try and back it off and just drop that 1 or 2 extra kilometers. And you don't want to change the trail braking too much, otherwise it interrupts that balance. It causes that seesaw effect, nose to tail, and you land up going and having a bit of a problem. Wyatt Peters putting in the fastest lap time of the race, 2:05.1, getting a proper charge out there. Run de Toy though in 6th place, going and putting a 2:04.85 behind Leon Bouillon. So he's utilizing that slipstream at the moment. He's utilizing it, but also just getting a phenomenal pace, but probably running the tank a little bit lighter, as we see Jaco van Lith, Jaco Krobler, Vainan Kursop, Duncan Roderick, Francois de Toy all pulling into the pits to serve their pit stops, and they'll be keeping a very close eye on where Doug Herber is going to filter out into this mix, because Doug Herber will be in a net first place, trying to make his way up through the order. So Doug Herber hoping they can carry enough momentum as the sun is setting, that orange glow hits on the track, but it does look like Jaco van Lith will be getting out ahead of them and will be taking that net first place at the moment. So he is out and on track, as the rest of the field needing to play a little bit of catch up. Jaco Krobler, Vainan Kursop also getting out and going, but not before Doug Herber and Jacques Eva getting that pass done and dusted. So Jacques Eva going to be happy with that run and will stay on the back of Doug Herber to carry him a little bit forward. Ruin de Toy all over the back of Lee Bouillon at the moment, trying everything he can, looking to try and close up that gap as late under the brakes as possible. Can't quite get it all tied in just as yet. De Toy hoping that he can get that little bit more momentum and stay within the fight, but he's going to have to get really tight behind the likes of Lee at the moment, who is just keeping up a solid run, not worrying about the pressure behind him, as we do jump on to the roll bar off the McLaren of Ruin de Toy. as he fights it out, trying everything he can to stay right in the mix, and unfortunately losing out a bit of time as Lee getting the little bit more of a drive up the hill over the crest. You can listen to that V10 Audi R8 screaming its way through. Sergei Sarkov and Roland Ferreira now pulling into the pits as they're getting their pit stops done and dusted. And ready, Detroit trying to close up that gap, running a little less aero as a bit less drag. Got that top end on him, but just when it comes to cornering, the Audi is managing to outperform him at the moment. He's got to be well aware of the strengths and weaknesses of his car and his competitor. Lining up on the inside line, Lee is going to be stuck on the outside as they charge their way through. This is going to be a bit of an uncomfortable situation. It's going to be late on the brakes, and it does look like the toy making swift work of Lee Bouillon at the moment. So these two going and opening it up. Steven Kutzer remaining to keep pressure on Wyatt Peters, as our top 9 still need a pit. Wyatt Peters, Steven Kutzer, Robbie Teens, Ruan Dutoy, Lee Bouillon, Stephen Cakebread, along with Gareth Britz, Leon Vessels, Kakleko McCoy, going and rounding out of all the cars that still need to get into the pits. Our top 9, hoping that they can stretch it out that little bit longer. Is it going to be effective though? That is the question at hand. Venon Kursop going on to the back of Jaco Krobler. So Venon Kursop, wobble as he's known to his friends, now doing everything he can with the support of the family, is Jaco Krobler going and losing the rear end of the Ferrari as it steps out underneath him and loses out that position, and now losing out yet another one. Does Chris Lee DeSantos get by? Will Duncan Roderick do so? Yes, he is, without too much of an issue. Unfortunately, that Ferrari stepping out, that rear going and snapping underneath him and saying, listen, buddy, not going to happen this time around. You got to be very careful. As we do see Wyatt Peters into the pit, Steven Kutzer going to remain out for this time round. Robbie Teens going to be staying out as he does take a look behind him. Marin Dutoy pulls into the pits as well. So this is quite a remembrance back to Heat 1 and saying, for Heat 2, this is not ideal circumstances, not exactly where I want to be. Lee Bouillon and Stephen Crakebread also pulling into the pits, serving their pit stops. So they'll be watching very closely of where Jaco is in this fight. How far back is he? Or will he become a threat? I don't think it is going to be the case on this point, as Peters, Bouillon, Cakebread and Dutoy have gone and made enough of a dent in that gap. As we do see up on the jacks for Lee Bouillon. And it looks like it is going to be a definite way to get going once again. Ruan Dutoy now on pit exits. So he's going to be happy with that. Leon Vessels running in 5th place is needing to get that little bit of a climb. Jaco van Lith doing everything he can to try and get that pass done and dusted as he looks ahead towards the likes of Dutoy, who's out of the pits and just ahead of him. Dutoy needing to get that little bit of momentum. Wyatt Peters long since gone, but cold tires on the McLaren getting a bit of understeer. Leon Vessels now needs to think, talking to his teammates. He's actually got a bit of damage to the front end of his car. That was from earlier on where he put a wheel on the dirt, turned around, clipped the wall, and unfortunately that has hurt his chances quite severely. Sergei Surkov trying to make up a little bit of time, gaining and gaining and gaining. Down the hill they go, the Ferrari 296 on the Porsche 992 GT3R. Not able to get that pass done and dusted as yet. And Sergei having to be a little bit more content with his position at the moment. And I repeat, at the moment, because we've still got plenty of time left in this race for drivers to really gear and give it the absolute horns till the end. Steven Kutzer now into the pits. Will Robbie Teens go and react on that? Or is he going to get past pits? He's going to go continue past pits. He knows he's going to go for that late gamble at this point. And Gareth Britz, who's a little bit far back, is going to have to choose whether he's going to dive into the pits to react to Steven Kutzer, or is he going to follow Robbie Teens by going that little bit longer? He's got to follow Robbie Teens on this one, going and keeping to a late stop. Go as deep into the race as possible. Kakleko at the moment, who in the BMW, running a great time and doing a phenomenal job, going to enter into pit lane, so going and trying to see where he can come out there. Leon Vessels, though, is going to keep his foot absolutely planted as they launch their way across the line and staying within the fight there. So, some proper racing at the moment as they charge their way through. Sergei Sarkov and Jakub van Lith not giving up the fight as they battle out between one another. Sergei Sarkov having to think what is going to be the opportune moment here, keeping in the tow, pulling himself along, knows that the Porsche doesn't quite have the straight line. He's going to follow him all the way through, dive onto the inside line. Will Jaco be able to get that pass, go and get it denied? He's going to try, go and trail brake, bleeding off the brake a bit early. Side by side they go down the hill, and it does look like Jaco just managing to keep ahead of Sergei Sarkov at the moment, but only by a fraction. Not an easy time out there, and thinking about the long haul run to it all. Sergei Sarkov now in the tow, has shown his hand that he can get past the likes of this Porsche, looks to the outside and doesn't want to go on the attack as yet. Knows how much it can compromise his run, and the corner exit if he goes for the inside line, taking a dive that will bring him into the clutches of Lee Bouillon and likes of Stephen Cakebread and Roland Ferreira, who are all running very close to one another. Jacques Eva and keeping ahead of Dirk Herbo, the team Try Hard Racing, as he puts the hammer down, hoping to get that little bit more pace underneath him. Sergei Sarkov trying to make up that little bit of time, looks to the outside, couldn't quite get it all hooked in, as we do have our top three still yet to pit. Robbie Teens, Gareth Brits, and Leon Vessels still going to continue out a little bit longer, and Robbie Teens is not backing off the throttle at 2:06.5 on that last run, so a little bit less than what he's able to do. Sergei Sarkov, though, unfortunately, pulls off the circuit. So something has gone absolutely wrong with that car and has taken him way out of the fight. So Sergei Sarkov, unfortunately, towing back to pits, has had a proper mechanical error, and that has gone and thrown him way out of it. Towing back to pits, and absolutely detrimental. That is heartbreaking for Sarkov at the moment. He's going to be going and having a little bit of frustration, going back to the mechanics and saying, listen guys, we got a bit of a problem here. I can't have these type of races where we land up with cars just clonking out as we get close towards the end. Roland Ferreira going and putting a huge amount of pressure on Stephen Cakebread just ahead of him. Stephen Cakebread doing everything he can to carry a little bit more momentum into turn one, trying to stay ahead of that beautiful Chevrolet of Roland Ferreira. Jacques Eva dealing with Dirk Herber at the moment. The two Porsches going and trailing each other along, hoping that they can get a little bit more pace. Malcolm Pringle, though, side by side with Jaco Krobler, the team Tryhard driver, or team Heap Together driver, dealing with team Slowpokes, and Pringle not able to get that pass hooked in and get past as yet. Will have to settle behind Jaco Krobler as he makes his way through. Jaco Krobler just taking a look behind him, saying, okay, buddy, you're going to stay behind me. I'm going to keep that defense, and I'm going to make you earn this position. As they do see Duncan Roderick just ahead of him, and Duncan Roderick not looking incredibly fast. We'll have these two closing up at a gap in a matter of minutes at the moment, and Jaco Krobler running out a little bit wide, gets on the power. You can see that rear starting to step out a little bit more, knowing that that is a bit of a problem out here. Dirk Herber all over the backs of Jacques Eva at the moment as he tries to put in a huge amount of pressure onto Jacques Eva. Not happening out there. Roland Ferreira staying onto the back of Stephen Cakebread. Gareth Brits now into the pits. So Robbie Teens, Leon Vessels still needing to pit. Robbie Teens going to go out a little bit longer. Gareth Brits saying, it's getting a bit close now. Going to try and get that pit stop done and dusted and see where I come out. Hopefully not dropping too far down the order. Leon Vessels going and agreeing on that, as both cars pulling into the pits, leaving Robbie Teens to just stretch out that gap a little bit more, thinking maybe if he can stretch out the gap, can he make that little bit of an advantage for when he gets into the pit lane to stay within the top three, knowing that Team Slowpoke has got Steven Kutzer and Wyatt Peters onto the back of them. He's going to be looking of, okay, Malcolm Pringle's gone. The only one that I've got to worry about from Team Slowpokes is Ron DeToy, but he's getting into a fight at the moment. So Ruan DeToy, who is making up a bit of time, saying that has actually gotten past as we see Gareth Brits and Leon Vessels making their way through. So Roland Ferreira trying to make up that little bit of time
But Ruin the Toy got past Jaco van Lith now and stretched open that gap quite a bit and is staying within the fight. So far, closest battle out on track is Steven Kakebreek, Roland Ferreira, Jacques Eva, and Dirk Huber that are fighting their way through. Steven Kakebreek trying to just battle it out with Roland right onto the back of him. Roland not doing his usual strat in terms of running so late into the race for the pit stop. He's going to rather just try and focus on the attack now. Pitted early, lap 8, where pitted lap 7, where Steven Kakebreek puts on lap 8 to get it done and dusted. So that really shows you the undercut, overcut of who's being able to get a little bit more of an advantage. Jacques Saver on lap 4 and Dirk Huber actually on lap 5 dived into the pits. But they do have Vane and Kursop making up a bit of time. Robbie Teens now into the pits, 25 and a half minutes. 4.5 minutes left of the race. Robbie Teens into the pits, and he will be keeping a close eye. Steven Kutzer hoping that he can try and get that position away from Robbie Teens. It's going to be a hard-fought push to the end as Robbie Teens still into the pit lane. So Steven Kutzer will look to get that climb as he charges his way through. Over the hill they go. And Robbie Teens still in pit lane, unfortunately, going to lose out. Steven Kutzer getting that top spot. Wyatt Peters will go and promote himself up into second. And will it be Ruin de Toy? Yes, it will, as there is Robbie Teens coming out of the pits. Will have the likes of Jaco onto the back of him. He's pulling Lee Bouillon at the moment as they march their way closer and closer. Lee doing everything he can, a little bit squirmy with the Audi, under braking, and that tells me he's moved that brake bias ever so slightly, hoping that that may change how the car's going and see if he can try and close up that gap. Look for any bit of pace at the moment, moving a lot of the brake bias to the nose to try and get that car to brake, pivot, and get in and out of the corners as fast as it can to the likes of the Porsche. The Audi, really good on the brakes, very stable, but if you push it too far, it's got a very ugly snap to it that can land you up in a bit of hot water. While the Porsche, a little bit more relaxed and will be able to keep going, but has got a horrific tendency of once you go slightly over the threshold, it will throw you to the wall. It will not give you any warning. It will not go and give you any tire squeal. It will just literally snap and send you going. And that's just where it gets that stability until something goes wrong, till it gets absolutely ugly, and it will land you up in some serious hot water. As we do see Lee Bouillon sideways, keeps it out of the wall, but loses out. Steven Kakebreek gets a pass as Lee rejoins the circuit, and Roland Ferreira gets that pass done and dusty. He kept it out of the wall, but unfortunately, there's that little snap I was talking about, that you can keep going until you push it that fraction too far, and game over. Francois du Toit dealing with Etienne Swartz at the moment as they fight their way through. Francois hoping that he can just keep the momentum, trying to put as much pressure onto the back of Etienne Swartz, who is trying to battle it out. Remember, Etienne Swartz, who was carrying a bit of damage early on in the race in Heat 1, had the nose smashed out underneath him. A little bit of a touch of the dirt, had a quick snap, trying to pull it back. And Francois du Toit going and seeing that there is that little bit of a problem. They are getting chased down by Leon Vessels though, and Vessels is not hanging around. Looks for the inside line. He is going to go on the attack on his very own teammate, and sees Francois du Toit just ahead of him, saying, all right, buddy, I'm coming up to you at a rate of knots. You're dropping a wheel on the dirt. You're compromising a bit of time here, and you are going to be compromising me. Well, Francois du Toit not going to be deterred by that. Continues on the drive. Now the McLaren of Leon Vessels has to try and figure out where he can get that pass done and dusted. Jacques getting onto the back of Lee Bouillon as they fight their way through. It's going to be a big climb for them as we get closer to the end stage of the race. 1 minute to go, and so far Steven Kutzer, Wyatt Peters have been quite a dominating force. Malcolm Pringle was within a shout, unfortunately going and landing up with a bit of a problem at the start of the race, threw him back. But Ruin de Toy running in third place, going to be quite happy with his run. And Robbie Teens in fourth place, once again scratching his head, going, come on, what do I need to do to get just that little bit quicker to close up the gap to the top three? Jaco van der Linde running out in 5th place. Great running for him. Got to say, one of the drivers that's really just come on and put out a show and really stepped it up in the world of iRacing and being part of the Raceface.Pro family. Good to have you here, but well done on a rookie drive, but putting on an absolute brilliant pro performance as a junior, as we do see, that's Jacques getting an ugly snap on the Porsche. Wynand Kersop tries to avoid him, clips the wall as well. So Wynand Kersop, who clips the wall, goes and lands up in a bit of a problem. Here comes Gareth Brits right at the last, and that has been the rob of the century. Wynand Kersop tried to avoid Jacques Ever, clipped the wall, and Gareth Brits just kept his foot absolutely pinned in it. Steven Kutzer getting in 1st place, along with Wyatt Peters. Rowan du Toit in 3rd. Robbie Teens and Jacques getting into that. Jaco van der Linde getting into 5th. 6th is Stephen Cakebread, Roland Ferreira, Lee Billion, Doug Herbert comes across the line. Gareth Brits with the rob of the century at the end is going to be smiling ear to ear on that one. Wynand Kersop a little bit frustrated with Jacques Ever. Also, that Porsche, that last minute snap was all she wrote. And Kaklekel did everything he could to try and make up that bit of time. Chris Lee DeSantos, Duncan Roderick going and closed up to Malcolm Pringle, but just couldn't get that pass done and dusted. So Malcolm Pringle, Duncan Roderick, Jaco Krobler did a fantastic job out there. 17th position. Etienne Swart in 18th. 19th is Leon Vessels, Francois de Toy, Mark Pelser, and Mandalozi Gabashai comes across the line and gets himself all sorted out. Unfortunately, going to be dropping a bit down with the pit stop. And Sergei Sarkov with Norman Lewis going and rounding out our pack here at Road Atlanta. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was definitely a well-called race. But let's take a look at our results. It is Steven Kutzer, Wyatt Peters, Rowan du Toit, Robbie Teens, Jaco van der Linde, Stephen Cakebread, Roland Ferreira, Lee Billion, Doug Herbert, Gareth Brits, Wynand Kersop, Jacques Ever, along with Kakeko McCauley, Chris Lee DeSantos, Malcolm Pringle, Duncan Roderick, Jaco Krobler, Etienne Swart in 18th position. Moving a bit further down, we have got Leon Vessels, Francois de Toy, Mark Pesser, along with Mandalozi Gabashai, Sergei Sarkov, and Norman Lewis, rounding out in 24th. Well, we've had our Heat 1, we've had our Heat 2, and it has been absolutely phenomenal with a crazy change up to the end. Who would have seen that coming? And, Jacques Ever is going to be absolutely kicking that car against the wall and saying, come on, why snap right there at the end? But let's take a look at our points, because this is where it's going to get interesting. Now, we do talk about our championship for our Pro-Ams. Does have 2 drop rounds to it, and that does help the drivers in terms of getting rid of their worst scoring rounds. And let's see how it has affected our championship. So, Rowan du Toit leads out the pack on 288, with Wyatt Peters up a position on 279. Malcolm Pringle down 1 position, 268. Followed by Roland Ferreira, Steven Kutzer, Robbie Teens, Etienne Swart, Leon Vessels, Doug Herbert, Chris Lee DeSantos in that top 10. Fani Kravenstein, Gareth Brits moving up in each moving up 1 position. Sergei Sarkov down 4 positions from the start, and that ties him up to Jacques Ever. Lee Billion going and running in 166 points. Stephen Cakebread on 148. Gordon Hales in 17th position. Wynand Kersop moving up a position, lying in 18th. Moving a little bit down, Duncan Roderick, Jaco Krobler, Francois de Toy, Jaco van der Lake gets 22nd. Mark Pelser, Norm Lewis, Yuppie Simons is lying in 25th. 26th, Hilton Nixon down 11 positions. Kaklejo Macaulay down in 27th, and 28th is Peter van der Spey, not able to make it to the grid. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was absolutely phenomenal stuff, and we've got to say a fantastic run from our Pro-Ams for round 3 here at Road America for the Raceface.Pro GT3 iRacing Sprint Series. But we're going to be having a bit of fun. Come next week, we have got some phenomenal racing. Out on Tuesday, we're back to some IndyCar action, as it's going to be nose to tail and some great racing. Also, those pushes to passes are going to be able to change up the entire run. Alternate tires needed, so they're going to have to run both sets of tires, softs and hards, to see where they can come through. So strategy is key on a fixed setup IndyCar race. On Wednesday, we'll be restarting with our Raceface.Pro GT3 Sprint Series out on ACC, Assetto Corsa Competizione, so don't miss that out. That's 8:10 on Wednesday, South African time, along with Thursday at 8:10, we'll have our Raceface.Pro GT3 Assetto Corsa Competizione, a longer race. Mandatory pit stops will come into fray, and with last season giving away 250,000 Rand thanks to our sponsor PokerBet on the last one, and Henry Mayer getting the win, will he be able to retain the crown, or will we see someone new? Well, we're going to have to find out. And I got to say, it's going to be an exciting one. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you hit that subscribe button along with that bell notification icon. Join us out on Discord here at Raceface.Pro, and we will see you all in the next one. And like always, from myself, Stephen Koenig, a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody. With all the amazing racing that comes to you weekly, we have to give acknowledgement to our sponsors. Without them, this would not be possible here at Raceface.Pro. So starting off with our first sponsor, let's go and take your hats off to PokerBet for all the tournaments, for all the cash games, daily free rolls, and sports betting. There's no better place to be and win with PokerBet. With it all revved up and you're looking for high speed, whether you're into drag, drift, or even long circuit, Red Star Raceway has got you covered. As we take a look off to all our machinery needs, head over to Oddendorf Machinery Mart. Remember to keep it slick with SA Lube, 20 years of Castrol distribution. Sliding in to keep you on your toes, Scallywags Drift Academy will keep you right at the top of the pack. And if you're looking for all your streaming needs, head over to Tenvo Tech for all the overlays. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's been an honor having you. We'll see you next time right here from the THT Productions.